Senate File 911. Oh, and reminder to all testifiers, everybody gets 2 minutes today, and because we're short on time and we want to have everybody be heard. So if you go a lot longer, you're cutting into somebody else's time. So anyways, thank you for adhering to that policy. Senator Morrison, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon. I do have an A1 amendment.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We voted?
So all those in favor of the author's amendment say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the opportunity to present Senate File 911, a school-related active transportation bill. And I will be very brief, but this bill, so that my testifier can further explain, and I know we're short on time, but this bill asks for a lot of what's already happening in our schools, but making sure that our kids are learning about active transportation and safety. And with that, I will turn it over to our testifier.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, my name is Dorian Grilly. I'm the Executive Director of the Bicycle Alliance of Minnesota. Thanks for hearing this bill today. About 10 years ago, the Bicycle Alliance worked with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Minnesota's Center for Prevention, MnDOT, and a steering committee to develop an elementary school safety curriculum called Walk, Bike, Fun. Since then, we've contracted with MnDOT to implement the curriculum. We've been working with schools and public health officials throughout the state to train educators to use it. To date, we've trained about 1,000 educators who are delivering that curriculum to 100,000 kids a year in every corner of Minnesota. The curriculum has classroom lessons and on-bike lessons. Walking safety is targeted to first, second, and third grade. Bike safety has been targeted to fourth, fifth, and sixth grades. But last year, we added a middle school curriculum and have started to include those in our teacher training sessions. Many school districts and some public health agencies have bike fleets to use during these trainings. And if they don't, we have 5 fleets that will deliver to your school for free for a week to use during the on-bike lessons. So I envision Walk, Bike, Fun to be the maximum a school would choose to implement, although many have expanded upon that and are teaching Learn to Ride. Pedestrian safety is already required as part of bus safety education. So I envision that all we would be adding is a few minutes of bike safety training discussing something like this bookmark, which says, follow the law, be predictable, be aware, be visible, and save your brain. Of course, wear a helmet. The bookmarks are readily available in Hmong, Spanish, Somali, and English, as are several learn-at-home handouts. We'll work with MnDOT and their Safe Routes to School committee to edit and condense those handouts into a one-page flyer that could go home in backpacks. So that's pretty much it. A bookmark, a flyer, and a few minutes of school time once a year would be the minimum. And of course, 1,000 teachers are already using what I envision the maximum, the Walk, Bike, Fun curriculum. So I probably don't need to tell you that there are lots of studies that show that kids that are engaged in daily physical activities are happier, healthier, and more focused at school. And another study, and I'll wrap it up there, is showed, and it was around the country, showed that schools that had infrastructure improvements had 18% more kids biking, walking to school. Ones that provided education had 25% more, and ones that did both had 31% more. So we think active transportation is a great investment. I'd be happy to answer any questions or hear any comments you may have.
Thank you. Members? Senator Abler?
Well, thanks. And I mean, it seems like a simple idea. There's no specific amount of time you have to do it. It's just like it has to be read a bookmark or sit through a 15-minute talk or a 1-hour thing just sometime.
I think it, Mr. Chair, Senator Abler, I think it could easily be simply another 5 minutes as part of the bus safety training where they get all the kids together, take them out, show them the school buses, and then they show them either the bike lanes or the trail or the sidewalk and the bike rack. And again, hand out this bookmark.
There you go. Mr. Chair, who can be against safety training? I'm sure, Mr. Chair, that NOCA, which some people call the largest in Minnesota, already does this. Are they familiar? Anyway, it's fine. Nice bill. And good luck.
Thank you, Senator, for bringing this bill forward. For many years, no one biked where I taught at high school, Eden Prairie, very few. There was more open spaces in the bike rack than taken by bikes. And every spring, about 4, 5, 6 of us teachers would have a bike to school day. And I don't know, maybe like 120 kids participated, and they all talked about, oh my God, this is so great. I haven't been on my bike. My dad had to get it down from the attic or whatever type stories. And oh my God, I'm gonna start biking again. This was great. I got to school and I'm all energized and ready to learn and all those wonderful things. And then the next day, again, the bike rack was empty. And but we didn't give up. We did it year after year. And but boy, whatever we can do to get kids to realize the advantage of biking and walking to school, and I know it has perhaps a negative connotation at the high school level to not drive and to bike and walk, but boy, don't give up, because it's a noble cause. So getting kids healthy and.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I think starting early is the key. Getting them in first, second, and third grade, and then third, fourth, and fifth grade. And as I said, many schools, districts are actually teaching Learn to Ride for their, kids from that didn't have the opportunity to learn.
Maybe before driver's ed, they have to have a biking ed in order to get into driver's ed. Senator Abler?
Well, thanks. I just was actually reading the bill some more. Just on page 4.4, it says the Commissioner of Transportation,
yes,
that Commissioner, but anyway, must maintain a comprehensive collection that meets the requirements. Mr. Chair, I just want to point out to the author and to the advocates that this actually could create a mandate creep on this, and so whatever they're going to decide what meets the requirements, and not the schools. I think you're better off with the schools being told to do this as you suggested, and as the bill moves, just consider that maybe you don't really need that model thing there. So thanks.
Okay. Senator, last words. Senator Kunesh, I'm sorry.
Thank you there. So I like this bill, and I like this bill for a number of reasons. In the bill, it states that they have to post it allows the cities to set speed limits on roads that are within 2 miles of a school speed zone or design designated safe routes to school. And I think that's really important. I know that in my school district, one of my school districts, Columbia Heights, there was a parent group that had to fight really, really hard to get that because of the drivers that were not heeding the fact that this was a school zone, and they had to make it very clear, and there was a whole campaign around it, which is sometimes what ends up happening. I can see this kind of program or this kind of training going in, like when kids come in before school, when you have the meet your teacher and get all your picture taken and those sort of things, just some reminders, not just for the students, but also for the parents. And I'll just say when it comes to bicycle safety, I am 100% champion. My father, unfortunately, was hit by a car riding his bicycle and was killed at a very young age. And so anytime that we can build awareness around this, around bicyclists. I mean, even when I see a bicyclist or a motorcyclist, I am just instantly, aware of the surroundings and slow down and more sensitive to my surroundings and other vehicles. And so, personally, I think this is a really good idea. And if we can allow kids, and we're seeing transportation issues where kids have to walk further or be ported from further away because the school can't afford those kids that are like within a mile or close to the school. If we allow for bicycle as a form of transportation to and fro from school, then I think this is an important one, and thank you for bringing it forward.
Mr. Chair.
Senator, final comments?
Mr. Chair and Senator Kunesh, thank you for your comments. Thank you for sharing that. I did not know that. I'm sorry for your loss. I do want to point out that the amendment does delete the section on the speed zoning. The county's objected, so that will be addressed in a separate bill. But I appreciate your comments, and Mr. Chair and members, I appreciate your support of this bill of getting our kids out there biking and walking.
We're going to send this to transportation. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? Bill passes on to transportation. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members.
Next up, Senate File 2500, Senator Hoffman.
Mr. Chair, when the time comes, I'll move the bill and the amendment.
Okay.
Just to expedite, see? Helping you.
Senator, Mr. Chair, thank you for hearing Senate File 2500, which is allowing high school students to earn elective credits through employment with certain healthcare providers. And I believe there is an amendment if Tara Erickson.
The A1, Mr. Chair.
Yes, the A1.
All those in favor of the author's A1 amendment, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Go on, Senator.
Thank you.
Good
In true
amendment.
tradition, you must explain what, an A1 amendment is, because I know Senator Avery would probably ask that question, but it just adds hospitals and it looks at the summertime extension. So that's, I appreciate the committee's passing the A1 amendment. But Mr. Chair and members of the committee, thank you for hearing Senate File 2500. It's a very simple bill that could have some pretty big impact on our state for high school students and healthcare industries. I don't know if you're aware of the crisis that we're facing in healthcare right now, but we're trying to find other ways and other avenues that we can be providing necessary care to Minnesotans that are vulnerable. And as you know, the long-term care and home and community-based industry are struggling, right? Basically, Mr. Chair, they're on the verge of collapse. There are 53,000 open positions in the caregivers bucket. And top this, Mr. Chair, with low and reimbursement from the state, it makes it very difficult to provide competitive wages. It's just an interesting one for you. If you work in elderly waivered services, you get paid $13.61 an hour, Mr. Chair. Right now, a town next to the town you live in, well, a couple towns over, Burnsville, you can get a job working at McDonald's for 21 bucks an hour. So you're sitting there trying to figure out how we're going to fill that gap. So this bill, Mr. Chair, it's modeled after the state of Washington did regarding students getting elective credits for gaining real-world experiences being in the workforce. For many of those students, they must work to help with family finances, but other students choose to whether they're saving for a car or college or simply having spending money. But what it does, and what we want this legislation to be able to do, is get students that they'll choose work in the healthcare industries and instead of something else. I mean, it kind of gets that pathway going, since we like to do pathways in this committee. I believe that high school students will be more likely to work in long-term care disability services or within hospital or clinic settings if they're able to not only get paid, but also they can learn some elective credits toward that. The learning experience one has outside of the classroom is incredibly valuable to students, gives people new insights, and it widens the time frame of reference within a community. It's kind of like that Latin phrase, veritas communitas, doesn't it, Mr. Chair? And I also know that teaching youth to share and accept each other's differences is part of building an inclusive culture that shields students with disabilities from bullying. Numerous studies have documented that people with visible and invisible disabilities are at greater risk of experiencing bullying than their peers, 3 times higher than anybody else. Students will learn that inclusion can protect vulnerable people from bullying and encourage empathy and kindness. Treat people like people, Mr. Chair. This bill will present new challenges and teach students how to polish their communication and people skills as well. And what we really get to is a renewed sense of self-worth. So, Mr. Chair, there's several letters of support from the home and community-based service providers that should be in your packet, as well as the long-term care imperative and the Minnesota Hospital Association and more. And I have a couple of people that are going to testify. Tara Erickson from the Best Life Alliance, Disability Service Coalition, and Nicole Kaplan Matson, Long-Term Care Imperative. So, Nicole, you want to come up too as well. So, Mr. Chair, Tara and Nicole.
You can begin your testimony and make sure you sign in on the sheet up there when you're done or before. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, thank you for allowing me to testify today on Senate File 2500. My name is Tara Erickson, and I'm here to represent the Best Life Alliance, which is a coalition of providers working in disability services. We also want to thank Senator Hoffman for authoring this bill and working with our organizations to try and help with our immense workforce crisis. This proposal was crafted after I read about a program in the Seattle Times that the Department of Education did without actually any legislation. They implemented a program that would allow students to earn elective credits towards graduation for learning through their jobs. What they found was that about 30% of students ages 16 and over were working, a lot of them because they simply had to because of family finances, and others just because they wanted to be in the workforce. And what the superintendent said in numerous meetings, we met with that department in Washington, just said we really believe that kids are learning and working within the workforce, and that this is a way for them to be able to get some credits towards graduation. The bill would allow high school juniors and seniors to earn one elective credit towards graduation for every 350 hours worked throughout the year, and would limit it to 2 credits each school year. We believe limiting this bill to healthcare industries that are providing care to vulnerable Minnesotans could be a tool for these industries to recruit and train students within their communities. The learning experiences a student has outside of the classroom are really incredibly valuable. This bill would help to develop new skills, which would be hands-on in the professions we are limiting this bill to. And luckily for us, we can tie this to learning and staff requirements that these industries already have in statute for direct support professionals, personal care assistants, and personnel in the long-term care settings. This bill will give students a wider perspective on working with seniors and with people with disabilities, and we believe that it could be an innovative idea for student learning and fits nicely into current career and technical education standards. The long-term care and disability service industries are on the verge of collapse because of our workforce crisis. This proposal could be a tool for us to help with these challenges and could also lead to pathways in the caring professions for Minnesota students. We have spoken with the Minnesota School Board Association, and they do like the idea of this, and I know that they are working on legislation that will look at learning outside of the school classroom. And so in my 23 years at the Capitol, I have never been before an education committee, so I don't know if I would be able to answer all of your questions, but we really think that this would be a great way to have very intelligent people in education to help us figure out a way to make this program work and help these industries as well. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can I test it? Yeah. Members of the committee, my name is Nicole Matson with Care Providers in Minnesota, and here today with the Long-Term Care Imperative. Along with my colleague, Kayla Kang from Leading Age, we're here today to give support to Senate File 2500. As you might be aware from local media and constituents in your respective districts, the senior care sector is facing its greatest workforce challenge to date. With over 20% job vacancy rates across Minnesota's long-term care setting, there's considerable urgency to attract new people to our profession so we can continue to play a vital role in the healthcare continuum today and into the future. In the next 5 years, 50,000 more Minnesotans will be 80 years or older. So our need for caring professionals will only grow. Therefore, we're appreciative of creative ideas, such as Senate File 2500, to encourage and incentivize youth to work in our sector. Earn and learn models like Senate File 2500 are effective workforce solutions that can allow for more personalized learning to take place outside of the classroom. This bill allows students an incredible opportunity to serve their community, gain work experience, and deepen their world perspective, all while simultaneously earning a paycheck and gaining high school credit. I myself benefited from a similar experience. I started as a dietary aide at a nursing home while I attended a work opportunity center high school in Minneapolis. And that experience gave me the chance to interact with people of various physical, cognitive, and behavioral abilities. It allowed me to see the complexity of life play out each day at work. Not only was I able to learn about aging, health, and wellness, but I also sharpened critical thinking and decision-making skills, gained meaningful experience in human relations, practiced self-management and teamwork skills, developed interpersonal relationships, and learned to navigate conflict and ethical issues. And ultimately, I found my career path through this by becoming a nursing home administrator, which led me to this current role. And I will turn things over to Kayla, who's going to wrap it up for us.
She's not on the testifier list,
Okay, then I will.
but your 2 minutes are up.
Okay. Well, in summary, we would appreciate if you would support this bill. We think it does a lot for the sector and encourages youth to serve their communities at a point in time when we need all hands on deck.
Members, questions? Senator Abler?
Well, thanks, and it's too bad we can't hear extra people, but, hi, Kayla. This is actually a really good idea, Mr. Chair. The industry is totally strapped, but many of the students who would be attracted to there would be some of the ones who would actually benefit by being part of a community, which some of these workforces become. And getting enough hours to earn 1 or 2 credits would be a substantial amount of time there, and I think may bind them to a group a peer group that might be kind of useful. Many students are actually alone or don't have a lot of good friends. And so on top of helping the industry where they may want to go, one of my son's best friends took on being a PCA and did it through he's in college, he did it all the way through his career, and it's like, you're doing a PCA job? And he says, I love it. Anyway, so Mr. Chair, this is a good idea. And if it can move forward, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
Senator Kunesh?
Thanks very much. I think about my sister who was a candy striper when she was in high school. And that's when they had them wear their uniforms, the red and white uniforms with a white blouse, and they had a little hat on. And she went on to become a nurse in the emergency room and a bunch of different ones. And then later on in her career, she was a public health nurse where she went out to the homes for those that were homebound. And so as you're talking about that, it sort of made me think about her. And growing up, the St. Cloud Hospital, it was like one of the best ways for a young kid to earn money because they paid a relatively decent wage for young kids in high school. But my question here is, I have 2 questions. Who in the school district is going to manage this? So if you have a bunch of kids either leaving during the day or they're working in the evenings or weekends, and the school has to verify all of this, you're going to need somebody to be managing it, supervising it, doing the paperwork. So that is my first question.
Mr. Chair, Senator Kunesh, so how Washington State is currently doing it is no students are leaving school to actually do this program. When we talked with them, that was never our intention, is that somebody would actually physically leave school during the day, but that if they have to work in the evenings or throughout summer to help with finances, that some of those hours could definitely go towards this. How Washington State is currently doing it is that the student applies with their school and just says, this is where I work, and the school has to verify it and the amount of hours. We are very open to trying to figure out what is the best pathway to do that. When we met with Department of Education, and we met with Dolly, and we met with Deed, it really seemed this year that there were a lot of barriers to kind of making this a pretty easy program for kids to try and do. But with that said, we are open to whatever we would have to do to try and make this work. I think that if it was too difficult for the employers to meet requirements, I don't think it would be utilized that much. And so, again, but very open to discussing that with you, if we can try and move this forward.
Great, Mr. Chair. And then if these students are working, and I know there are a lot of students that might work in home health care professions, you know, like the community, like my mom was in a nursing home for 5 years at the end of her life, and there's a shortage of employees there. So I guess I also would want to just be sure that these students have some kind of training. So I guess I'm wondering who would do the training. I'm assuming it's within the employer. But what level of training would you expect them? Like, we want to make sure that if somebody's getting out of bed and they tell this young person, help me get to the bathroom, or help me get over to this chair, if they're not trained or they don't have, you know, that they're not doing things that they shouldn't be doing. Like, I wasn't even supposed to help move my mom because of liability. So that's kind of my question. And then what are the limitations of what they can do? I mean, if they're there to, you know, sweep and clean up and, you know, after meals, they're there to clear the tables and do the dishes, does that count towards it? Or do they have to have some level of, like, interaction with, you know, like, what exactly do they need to do to meet the requirements?
Mr. Chair, and Senator Kunesh, so how currently we had envisioned this working is that if a residential group home hires a student, they would have to meet the exact same requirements that they would as any for PCA requirements or direct support professionals, and all of those are already currently in statute. So they would be hiring them for things and training them just as they would any other employee. And they know what they can and cannot do. So we wouldn't be going outside of what is current regulation for in those facilities. So I can only speak for the disability service side of that. And I'll let Ms. Manson talk about how they would plan to use them in the long-term care setting.
She should come visit her place.
Mr. Chair and Senator Kunesh, long-term care, skilled nursing facilities and assisted living are very heavily regulated. There's a lot of prescriptive training that must be completed by any new individual coming on board. Some of that is dependent on the type of job that they would do. So if there is direct caregiving that's involved, there's a different level of orientation that's needed if someone is going to serve, say, as a dietary aide or as a housekeeper. But I would say all of those roles are valued and appreciated and could be used in a scenario like this. Those are the exact supportive roles that we're looking to fill. Even if direct caregiver, say, was a potential barrier, there are some requirements with lifts. Under 18-year-olds cannot operate them independently using a mechanical lift, but not every resident needs a mechanical lift. So that's not always the barrier that you think it would be.
Just one more. So my question is, for the training part, is that something that there would be a cost to the student? Or is that on-the-job training and they provide all of that and it would not be a hardship to the student? No. Oh, okay. All right, thank you. Those are just some of my initial thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Bolden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't necessarily have a question, just a thank you for bringing this bill. I think this is a really good idea. I actually did this many, many years ago when I was in high school. I worked as a CNA in a long-term care facility and fell in love with it, and that directly led to my becoming a nurse. And
Now she's a nurse, yeah.
It will be useful in more ways than one, so thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
Now she's a nurse.
Thank you, testifiers. Thank you, Senator Hoffman, for bringing this bill forward. One of the mantras of my career as an educator was don't let school get in the way of your education.
Good
And this would be a classic example of that. And I think the 350 hours, 1 credit's very generous. That's a lot of commitment by a high school kid for 1 credit. So I hope this program's a huge success because the shortage needs young people to realize how valuable this career path can be. And so thank you. Final word, Senator?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. And, since, Senator Kunesh, she talks about her life as in due process as an educator, you think that was full of paperwork. You should see the kind of paperwork that some of these long-term care providers have to fill out, dum-dum. But the second thing is, I look forward to working with Adosh from the Department of Education to make this a huge success so that we can help really get some pathways going. And I know that we can all count on that. So I appreciate you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate you members. Thank you.
Senator Abler?
You want the bill moved or something?
Yes.
To the floor? Or to?
Laid over.
Laid over.
Well, then just gavel it laid over. You have power, Mr. Chair.
Send it to the floor.
Mr. Chair, I'll move that.
To
Senate
Ed
file-
Finance.
So would Senate file, whatever this one was, be recommended to pass and sent off to Ed Finance.
So moved. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members.
Thank you, Senator.
Sorry, Senator Kunesh, 3 bills. First one's 2373 and then 2377, and lastly, Senate File 60.
So, Mr. Chair, I would like to move Senate File 2373 for consideration.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay.
So, members, this is basically a vehicle bill related to early childhood. It removes any obsolete language from voluntary pre-K statutes, and that is my bill.
Members?
Chair.
Senator Abler?
Well, I favor removing obsolete language, just as though they don't remove obsolete members, so I'm in favor of the bill. Thank you.
I don't see Abler in here.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Senator Duckworth?
Thank you. Senator Kunesh, it being a vehicle bill, and it's going to be related to childcare or early childcare, or what is it going to be?
Early
related?
childhood.
Could you just give us an idea of kind of what you intend or what we might see in that bill later, just as a, I don't know, a precursor?
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, I don't know. That's why we have this here, just in case that there's something that comes in at the last minute that we want to have some urgency or be able to add any kind of good legislation. So we want to have that there and make it available.
Anybody else?
I renew my motion to move this on for possible inclusion in your nope, we're just going to.
General orders.
To general orders, yep.
All those in favor, we already made the motion, right?
I'm just renewing my motion.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Thank you. Motion carries.
My second bill is Senate File 2377, and again, a vehicle bill removing obsolete language from early childhood family education. And that is my bill.
Mr. Chair,
Senator Abler.
a vehicle bill does no good parked in the education policy garage, so I'm glad we moved that other bill out.
Thank you for
We
that
should do the same thing with
metaphor.
this one, thanks a lot.
Oh, my gosh. And so I renew my motion to send this to general orders.
Ed Finance,
Ed Finance,
your committee, Madam
my committee.
Chair.
OMG. Thank you.
All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, motion carries.
All right, members, my next bill is Senate File 60, and this is a bill that would allow educational data sharing with the tribal nations about our tribally enrolled or descendant students. We all know that COVID-19 and the resulting educational downturn have negatively impacted all of our students, but really very much our Indigenous communities, exacerbating already existing gaps in education. According to the 2020 census, American Indians and Alaska Natives accounted for just 1.1% of the Minnesota population, yet Minnesota has one of the worst college readiness gaps in the nation by race and ethnicity. Only 25% of our Black students, 28% of our American Indian kids, and 26% of our Hispanic students are prepared for college. As we've heard this session, Indigenous communities have been historically underserved in education and many other areas, but especially with post-secondary education attainment rates trailing other racial groups. These education gaps can result in poor graduation rates, less access to higher ed, difficulty accessing future quality jobs, and increasing the likelihood of poverty-level wages and job insecurity. Access to data by the tribes that follows Indigenous students through their educational process would allow their tribal leaders to gain insights into these learning and opportunity gaps and to work closely with them and their families. To do so, the tribes would be able to explore strategies to be more representative of underserved student education through data sharing processes to better understand and then advocate for those positive educational experiences of all Indigenous students. With the inclusion of data in the state and the tribe's longitudinal data system, tribes will be able to work with families, schools, and students to answer their most pressing issues and questions, including evaluating how the state's Indigenous population are faring in its statewide educational attainment goals. It also would ensure that tribes are at the table working to solve the equity gap in the education and workforce. And so, members, with that, I would ask you to support Senate File 60.
Members? Senator Abler?
Well, thanks. And first, just a procedural question. Is this going off to judiciary?
Yes, it is.
Okay, well, I'm happy about that. So something you might, and I,
And just, I also have two testifiers.
I'll wait.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
The testifiers, are you ready?
Adosh, excuse me, Mr. Uni, and then do you have, by chance, Irene Folsom online? No?
This is Lori Harper,
Lori
and
Harper.
I will replace Irene.
Would you like to introduce yourself, and then you can go ahead, Lori?
Sure. I'm Lori Harper. I'm the Director of Education for Leech Lake Band of Ojibwe. I also serve on the Tribal Nations Education Committee in Minnesota. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I am providing input after consulting with the Tribal Nations Education Committee and our staff at Leech Lake on Senate File 0060. Tribal nations are charged with the health and prosperity of our children and communities. In order for us to positively impact the state's educational achievements, it only makes sense for tribal nations to have access to data about our children and youth that will help us better inform our policies and programming that will better support our partnerships with the local educational agencies, as well as the state Department of Education. On line 3.23, right above that line, it states, at a minimum, the institution must distribute the information release forms at parent and student organization meetings, or the tribes, and Leech Lake specifically, state that this should be an and rather than an or, as there isn't a compromise for tribes on that specific change. So it should read and with tribal nations about tribally enrolled or descendant students to the extent necessary for the tribal nation and school district or charter school to support the educational attainment of the student. Miigwech Bizendawig. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Uni?
Mr. Chair, committee members, my name is Ado Shuni. I'm the Director of Government Relations for the Minnesota Department of Education. And we've heard this bill in the legislature several times and in the governor and lieutenant governor's bill over the past few legislative sessions. And I do want to thank Senator Kunesh for leading on this effort persistently. Broadly, this bill would allow districts and charters to share private educational data with tribal nations about their tribally enrolled or descendant students, specifically to support the educational attainment of those students. It adds tribal nations as a specific entity to a list of 17 already permissible uses and entities allowed to receive this private educational data for legitimate educational purposes. Currently, we have 37 districts or charters that are required to engage in tribal consultation under the federal Every Student Succeeds Act. Many of our districts and charters have done a great job in partnering with our tribal nations or tribal representative entities like the Tribal Nations Education Committee, on which Ms. Harper sits, to share data to be able to look at what is the best educational programming for their tribally enrolled or descendant students. However, there are some districts, based on legal advice, that are determining that since the tribal nations are not explicitly listed in the list under Chapter 13, and deciding that they don't qualify as volunteer organizations under Paragraph J, that the district is not allowed to share the educational data with the tribal nation for this legitimate educational purpose without some type of prior consent from the parent. We do believe, for the record, MDE, that the tribal nations would qualify as a volunteer organization under this list, but to address that concern and to just create a clear direction in statute for our tribal nations and for the school districts and charters, we would put this specifically into to statute for under this list and facilitate the permission in statute explicitly for districts and charters to have the legal cover to share the data with the tribal nations to meaningfully engage with that tribal consultation, as well as for the purposes of, under the auspices of enhancing educational programming. This would allow for tribal nations and districts and charters to partner to look at the impact on their students and how they are doing, to be able to provide advice to the district and charter based on the data. Additionally, this would allow tribal nations more opportunities to access local data that MDE may not receive on a regular or short-term basis in order to provide quick support services to their tribally enrolled or descendant students. For example, a district could share attendance data with a tribal nation to allow them to support a student and their family with whatever they may need to return to regular attendance. This is data, short-term data, that just the department doesn't have. So this will facilitate deeper partnership with districts and tribal nations. And again, Mr. Chair, thank you for the opportunity to provide support to this, and to Senator Kunesh for consistently championing this effort.
Thank you. Members? Senator Abler?
Yeah, now, Mr. Chair. Anyway, I'll wait till she's through. Hi.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I'm here. It's great to be here, to be together with all of us. I mean, sometimes you have to talk about stuff on your bill. I think that's awesome. I'm glad it's going to judiciary. I just have and I don't know why that this is anything difficult. I don't think they qualify under paragraph J, in my opinion. It says volunteers, not organizations. But I think it's fine to spell it out. But I do have two things I want to just raise to you, Senator Kunesh. One is people sometimes like to keep to themselves, and they don't want people knowing stuff about them, no matter tribal or otherwise. And I think you might consider an opt-in on some people that aren't part of our reservation anyway, or part of our school or something. And the second thing is on line 3.21. I mean, and the thing is, then people are, if you're going to go in their lives and show up at their house and say, we're here to help your education. Well, who are you? How do you even know anything about me? And well, we have all your data. Then they're like, whoa, that just might off-put people from what you're trying to accomplish. And so if they opt in, which I favor opting into, we have an opt-in now. You can share school data with social services, with corrections at the county level today. And that's hopefully going to work more and more. But the second thing is this on line 3.21, the descendant students. At some point, I happen to have a friend who adopted his daughter's daughter, who was 1/8 some kind of tribe from Wisconsin. And so they ran into some MIFPA things that they were concerned about, which is interesting as well. But so at some point, there's a diminishing return where a person feels like they have some kindred thing to the tribe. And I'm just saying I'm just blurting it out to you. But they were wondering why with 1/8, here I am, the grandparents, why are we worried about losing our granddaughter since nobody else is in a position to take them anyway? But I think at just some point, you might want to decide, I don't even know what the number is, but at some point there's a person, when it's a small enough percentage that the tribe probably isn't interested in anyway, or that they're not interested in being connected so much. Just a thought for you. And so the people that are directly connected to a tribe would feel like they're active or something. So you don't have to react. I'm just sending that out as a semi-ignorant sentence that might help you succeed at your goal.
So I'm going to ask Mr. Adosh to respond to that, that kind of privacy, or if people don't want that information shared, and then I'll talk to you about the second half.
Sure.
Mr. Chair, Senator Abler, so the purpose of the proposal is to allow districts to, not force, but allow districts to share with the tribal nations who have students who are tribally enrolled, or descendant students who are deeply connected to the tribal nations who are in those school districts or charter schools. And this would be without parental consent, just like the currently 17 other currently allowed activities or entities that have that. And so to require parental consent just for this proposed purpose would single them out, different than the current 17 existing uses or entities. Additionally, it'd be our position that would defeat the purpose of it. This is for not only tribal consultation purposes, but also for the purpose of being able to provide assistance to the families and students at a quick pace. Pardon me, I lost a train of thought. Under federal data privacy laws and state data privacy laws, there are instances where, and I just don't have the list in front of me, under FERPA and under, I can't remember what the data privacy law specifically acronym is under state law, parents are allowed to be able to opt out of data being shared with other entities currently.
You had some, I'll respond to both at once, if you wanted to. Mr. Chair, Senator Kunesh wanted to respond.
Sure.
Or if you want to take it offline, I don't mind which, but whatever you feel like saying.
I'll respond, but before we do that, Ms. Harper, would you please repeat what you want, when you said you'd rather have and rather than or, where is that?
That is on line 3.23, where it states, at a minimum, the institution must distribute the information release forms at parent and student orientation meetings, or after meeting with the Tribal Nations Education Committee this morning, there was great discussion about striking the word or and inserting the word and. We still have, as Mr. Uni indicated, we have school districts that refuse to share student data when we are in tribal consultation with those LEAs. And the word and is stronger language and more inclusive for the tribe's needs of the data.
Ms. Harper, I need to look at this a little bit closer, but thank you for bringing that forward, and I'm going to work on this, and I'll speak to you offline to make sure that we get this right. Yeah, thank you. And
Ms.
then-
Lewis, do you have a question by chance? Okay. Okay.
And then just to speak to Senator Abler, what you were talking about is what is commonly called blood quantum. And each tribe has their own limits of when you are an enrolled tribal member or when you don't meet that threshold. My mom and my grandpa, my mom was an enrolled tribal member at Standing Rock Nation. We kids are not. But we still have those strong connections to our community out there, and we still own land from relocation. So it's really a tribal nation or community or band who makes those decisions, whether you are an enrolled member or not. And that's being changed and looked at, all the time. And so those might just be some of the reasons.
Thanks, Mr. Chair.
We do have two more bills, but Senator
Okay.
Abler, go ahead.
All right, well, we're talking about this one, so I'm not trying to delay it. But but back to my opt-in thing. And so I'm just telling you that this citizen who adopted this, really nice daughter enjoying retirement, raising a daughter with a tribal connection, some people this person would be very surprised that he would be suddenly wrapped up in this. And it'd be an issue for this person, not for me, that's back to the opt-in thing and the communication piece. So I'm just trying to help your bill to work. And then one thing else I just wanted to comment on the Sovereignty Day, Johnny Johnson talked about how 98% of their tribal students are graduating. And so, Mr. Chair, I think there might be something to learn from that in a time when so many, Native American and other students are not graduating. So, maybe it's not my business. I mean, it is my business. I care. But I thought his speech was amazing and very personal and touching to me. I learned a lot. But I think if we can apply maybe something that he learned with whatever you're trying to do here, you might have more success. So that's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Senator.
Final comments?
No, just I would renew my motion to accept this bill and pass it on to judiciary.
All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries.
Senator Cwodzinski, to your bill.
Yeah, thank you, members. Thank you, Madam Chair. This bill is an attempt. Our teachers are stressed. We all know that they've had the last few years have been difficult. They're stressed out for a number of reasons, and anything we can do to take things off of teachers' desks, off their plates, help them. And one of the things this bill tries to do is give the teachers the prep time that they're entitled to. We all know that teachers take a lot of papers home with them every night. Prep times have changed over the years. When I first started teaching, a prep time was literally preparing for my classes. And over the course of my career, prep time became something to answer emails from parents and answer voicemails from parents and meeting with counselors about a child's development. And it just, you lost the prep hour to important things, but teachers just kind of have lost a lot of their prep hour. And I was at a middle school, I think before session started, and it was an hour and a half before school started at the middle school, and the principal came on the announcements and said, any teachers that, we have a shortage of subs in the building today, and we need teachers to step up and help and give up their prep hours. And teachers are willing to do that because they're their colleagues, they're friends, but it just adds to teachers' day when they were planning on doing all this work on third hour, and all of a sudden, before school started, they sacrificed their third hour off in order for the common good. So basically, there's two words in this bill that I have to think of. When I saw it, I thought of a bill by Senator Duckworth a couple weeks ago on his transportation bill, and he had lines 19 and 20 on page 1 has the words "may" and "mutual agreement," and those might be the two words of the session so far for him and I. Anyways, we have a couple testifiers. That's all I got to say about this bill. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Cwodzinski. So we'll move to testifiers. The first is Ginger Williams. On Zoom. Who is on Zoom? Please turn on your camera and unmute yourself. Introduce yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony. After that will be John Bartholow.
Good afternoon. My name is Ginger Williams. I'm a language arts teacher in Moorhead, Minnesota. I've been teaching for over 15 years, the last 4 years at Horizon Middle School in Minnesota. As a language arts teacher, prep time is everything to me. My ability to grade the work that my students submit within a reasonable time and with the necessary feedback is directly tied to the amount of prep time that I'm allotted. There have been years when my class sizes were small and my prep time was significant. I completed almost all of my grading at school, giving my students clear and helpful feedback. Since my move from North Dakota to Minnesota schools, I've seen an increase in class sizes. Some of my classes this year have over 30 students, and a decrease in the amount of prep time. These days, I work to make sure that my rubrics are as clear as possible, knowing that I simply will not have time for effective feedback. I work late into the night grading, even with the rubrics, and I'm exhausted the next day when I need the energy to reach my 7th graders with excitement. Making matters even worse this year is the extreme sub shortage that we've been facing. I've had to give up my prep time at least twice a week to sub for other teachers. Outside of these issues, there's the added need for collaborative time. We follow a team model with a group of core teachers all serving the same group of students. Our team used to meet regularly to discuss the students' strengths and issues, work to find solutions, communicate with parents and guardians, and ensure that every student's needs are met. Due to the sub shortage, our team members have been required to give up that collaborative time in order to cover other classes. It's been frustrating to watch what was an incredible year of progress and growth in serving our students come to a halting stop as we lose that precious time to work together. All of these factors are beginning to lead me to burnout and question my ability to continue as a teacher. It's so hard to continue on in this profession that I love when I feel myself being limited by the constraints of time and availability. I want to be the best teacher that I can be. I want to provide valuable feedback and give meaningful assessments. I want to see my students grow and collaborate with my colleagues for their benefit. Please give teachers the margin that we need to do our jobs successfully. Thank you for allowing me this time to testify.
Thank you for your testimony, Ms. Williams. Next, we'll hear from John Bartholow. And after that, Chris Triggs. Welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself and proceed.
Definitely. Madam Chair, I'm John Bartholow. I'm a social studies teacher with St. Peter Public Schools. I'm here today because to testify on SF 680. Sorry. I'm in my 8th year of teaching, and I can't tell you how important prep hours are to our profession. Like Senator Cwodzinski said, this is the time where not only do we prepare our lesson, but it's where you catch your breath, grade some papers, grab some coffee, make copies, go meet with the guidance counselor about that one student, call back the parents who called you, redo your seating charts, and go to the school nurse to get Band-Aids and tissues, and collaborate with your professional learning or PLC team about that last assessment that didn't go so well. Also, special ed and mandatory cybersecurity trainings. I can thoroughly detect when a hacker is after my email account now. You might think that that's part of the life of a teacher. Like Senator Cwodzinski said, it has evolved since the last few years. But when I taught previously at Hendricks Public School in Minnesota, I had 5 different subjects and I had 50 minutes of prep time. I had to create my own curriculum and grade papers. As is often the story, I loved the community I served in, but I was often in the classroom until like 8 p.m., partly because I refused to bring it all home with me. Remember a colleague nagging me that, oh, you need to join the PTO, and another one saying like, oh, we need help with the assistant soccer coaching after school, and it's like really the worst person you could pick for that, but okay. So as many of you know, the teaching shortage has been exacerbated by the pandemic, with more and more teachers reporting feeling burned out and fleeing the profession. One of the big complaints is how much teaching impinges on our personal lives, and because of all the things we have to bring home during the school year. Many of my colleagues are juggling parenting, their marriage, and friends, as along with teaching and coaching. By increasing prep time, you will help teachers like me who have more time with friends and family, so that we can feel valued, renewed, as Ginger said in her testimony, energized for the day. Because like her, I also teach 7th graders, and yes, they do demand every little bit of your, what's left of your energy. So with that, thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we'll hear from Chris Triggs, and after that, Chuck Ochoki. Mr. Triggs?
Thanks for having me. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, committee members. I guess I appreciate the opportunity to speak to the proposed prep time increase. I've been 13 years at the elementary. This is my 29th year in education, and I just want to say right off the hop that we're absolutely in support of the concept of additional prep time for teachers, recognizing that well-prepared teachers, they provide better core instruction and better results and better classroom management. It just overall works better for everybody in the school. But with the current proposal, though, I just want to caution what implications can come with that, because the current proposal, with relative to representation in Moorhead with our 5 elementary schools and 5th and 6th grade, that would increase prep time to 30 minutes a day during the day. And my only concern with that is pulling those classroom teachers, which are most valuable to us, kids, to teaching core instruction. As we know, there is a sizable learning gap with a lot more students after the past 2 years. So you take another 30 minutes, you have to decide. We're already struggling trying to figure out how to best implement core instruction for our core subjects. So when you look at right now, staffing and budget implications and staffing shortages, for instance, we had a kindergarten opening in August, and usually when I started, there was almost 300 applicants. We had 2. So we'd have to add an additional 30 staff to cover this, probably more than that to cover that time. So we would ask you to consider other options, whether it be extended day or compensating people that are doing PLCs, which is a research-based practice that is best for kids. So thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Triggs. A side note, I just will announce that we will be hearing Senate File 1273 today. So if you are here to testify for that bill, please stay for that. We'll hear that bill next. All right, we will next hear from Chuck Ochoki. My apologies if I am mispronouncing that. And after that will be Crystal Breakey. Please.
Yeah, no, really close.
Proceed.
So thank you. My name, Madam Chair and members of the Educational Policy Committee, my name is Chuck Ochoki, and I'm the proud principal of South St. Paul High School. Thank you for allowing me to share our concerns with Senate File Bill 680 regarding prep time for teachers. The Minnesota Association of Secondary School Principals believes prep time is very important for all of our teachers. We want our teachers to be prepared for their students. We want them to not bring as much work home every day. We want them to have a chance to catch their breath during the school day. I know how hard our teachers are working to change the lives of our students. I see the amount of work teachers bring home because I'm married to a teacher. So I hope you understand we support prep time for our teachers in our schools. But I want to share with you what the proposed legislation would do at South St. Paul High School. Just one example of one high school in this one great state. South St. Paul High School is relatively small. We currently have 890 students in grades 9 through 12 and 34.6 full-time teachers. Our students take 6 55-minute classes every day, and our teachers teach 5 out of 6 periods, and our teachers currently have 55 minutes of prep time. If this bill were to pass, changing the formula of prep time from 5 to 25 to 5 for 17, our teachers at South St. Paul High School would need 80 minutes of prep time. The 80 minutes of prep time means we would need to hire more additional teachers to cover the class periods, and it would cost roughly $720,000 every year moving forward. For the district, which has 2 elementaries and 1 middle school, we would need to hire an additional 22 students, which would cost roughly $1.9 million. I know one of the questions will be, well, can't you just do things differently? I can add additional class periods, I can change the start time or the end time for the day, but the truth is we need to hire more staff and budgets are tight. Now, that being said, at South St. Paul High School, when we have issues that need to be addressed, it's required that you come up with a solution, not just reasons why something won't work. So there is a solution that I can use to cover the 5 for 17 prep time introduced in this bill. When building the student class schedule, I can make one change needed to hire more teachers. That's by changing the average number of students per class. Right now at South St. Paul High School, when I build the master schedule, I schedule 31 kids into a class. If I change that number to 39 kids per class, I can implement this new bill without it costing the district any additional funds. But the question I have, is that really what's best for our students and teachers? Prep time is really important, and as principals, we need to protect that for our teachers. But I'm concerned about the real costs of the proposed bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ochaki, for your testimony. Next, we'll hear from Crystal Brakey. Please introduce yourself and proceed.
Madam Chair, committee members, my name is Crystal Brackey, and I am a school board member for Richfield Public Schools and the chair of the Association of Metropolitan School Districts. I am proud to serve on a school board where out of 6 elected members, 3 of us have been classroom teachers. I share that to make clear that the concerns I have about Senate File 680 have nothing to do with the importance of prep time for teachers, and that school board members care deeply about the well-being of our students and our teaching staff. As a board, we are responsible for looking across our entire school system and making decisions that reflect our daily and yearly realities as it relates to student enrollment, school calendars, facilities, and finances. The proposed legislation before you touches on all of these factors. In Richfield Public Schools, with an enrollment of roughly 4,200 students, our teachers currently spend 16.7% of their time in prep in accordance with the current statute. If this legislation advances and we do not adjust our calendar, that percentage of prep time would increase to 22.7% of a teacher's workday. To ensure we have responsible and appropriate instruction available for our students, we would need to increase our teacher workforce by roughly 6% to accommodate this change. We have neither the teacher supply nor the funding to make this a viable option for us as a district. Even if we could find the teachers to hire, the dollars that would be required to comply with this bill alone more than exhausts the entire proposed per pupil increase in funding to Minnesota schools. The current draft of the bill encourages schools to explore flexible learning plans to make this more financially viable, including 4-day school weeks. I'm concerned that the main beneficiary of this change would be private, independent, and homeschool networks. Our students and families are still recovering from the pandemic and significant lost learning time. To make a change of this magnitude feels premature, absent broader strategic work to reimagine how school days and other statutes related to student success should be adjusted to better support our students and their families in working towards their academic, social, and emotional needs. I urge you to gather meaningful input from your communities before making a change that could have such a profound impact on our daily lives. Please consider the significant effects this would have on your local schools and the families and students in them. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony, Ms. Brackey. Next, we'll hear from Sam Walseth. Is Sam Walseth here? All right, we will move next then to Eric Norby. Mr.
Hi,
Norby.
good afternoon, committee members. I'm Eric Norby. I'm the principal at Armstrong High School, and I'm honored to be here testifying to you today on Education Bill or Senate Floor 680. As a principal that has built and developed master schedules for over 12 years, I have some reservations in regards to the language included as part of this bill. After careful consideration, I've determined that it would be difficult to build a suitable and effective student schedule with the conditions outlined in the proposed bill. Based on our schedule, according to the language in this bill, we would have to create 58 more minutes for teacher prep time a day. We run a very common 7-period day, 40 to 750 minutes per class period. Teachers already have a period devoted to prep time and every day of a supervision. Additionally, they have a period of duty time to help supervise a study hall or a resource room. And in these spaces, teachers are providing additional time and supporting all our students. If this bill becomes law, we would not be able to offer study halls for students or staff, the resource rooms by licensed teachers that support our students with enrichment or intervention activities without hiring additional staff. At Armstrong High School, that means we would need to hire 6 additional teachers to run study halls, or we would need to hire 6 additional teachers to offer more courses for students. That cost at Armstrong High School by itself is $588,000 based on our teacher cost formula. This is just an example of one high school with 1,850 students. It'd be much higher and bigger in bigger school districts. If funding was not supported by this bill, that means we'd have to reallocate our funding for our students. We as schools leaders try to develop flexible ways to create additional prep time for teachers without serious financial repercussions. The rigidity of this bill makes it incredibly difficult to properly schedule students. Considering this, we would also need to add more time to the teacher contract during the day to accommodate additional preparation minutes. I applaud the authors of this bill for recognizing that there's a need for all teachers to have adequate prep time. We ask that any bill that is passed does not penalize districts or schools that already strive to provide staff extra prep time and flexible ways to accomplish this during the school day. Let's please leave it to the individual districts to make this decisions for their community. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Norby. Senator Cwodzinski, any other comments before we move to member discussion and questions?
No, I'll wait till after Senator Abler's question and comment.
Questions or discussion, members? Senator Abler.
Mr. Chair, the longer we're together, the more we become telepathic. I appreciate that. And I don't have a lot to say except just a couple comments. Some of the concerns are significant. I'm sure you thought of that, so I'm not sure if this is a serious effort or not. But so I think the policy concerns are clear. I just have a question. I support collective bargaining, and I'm not sure I'm a fan of putting collective bargaining in statute. Ironically, the very statute you're amending to do more collective bargaining apparently hasn't worked. So you're improving on a collective bargaining agreement from 1995. So personally, I think bargaining belongs in bargaining and law begins in law, so or belongs there. Thank you.
Senator Duckworth.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You know, this is a very interesting topic, teacher prep time, right? There are two very, I think, valid sides to this debate. We've heard from teachers that said, hey, we need more prep time. It would be super helpful, not only to our personal lives, but to the professional career that we have in helping these kids. And then we hear from districts, principals, and school boards saying, well, yes, and there's also some real world implications that impact how we're going to be able to accomplish the mechanics of the day and plan for the actual schooling and to make sure we've got teachers in the classroom for the kids. And so for those reasons, I think, you know, teachers and their respective local unions and the districts are required to come together every so often to negotiate a contract. And I think oftentimes teacher prep time, among other things, are a part of those negotiations and a part of that contract. So I'm going to echo what Senator Abler had to say, which was, I don't necessarily think it's the role of us at the state level to try to mandate or shape those contracts. I think we should let teachers and districts do it, because what works in one district might be a little bit different in another, and another district might have a more creative solution that their teachers as well favor. So for those reasons, I would say keep it at that local list of levels. Let our teachers and districts and administrators collaborate and try to find the best solution that serves them and their kids the best. Thank you.
Senator Kunesh.
And I'll just put, based on my experience as a teacher, I think it's one of the biggest problems when our teachers say we need more prep time. Oftentimes it's because those prep times have not been protected. They haven't been, you know, we hear about mandates coming down from the legislature to the school districts. It's the same thing that our teachers have these mandates that they have extra reporting to do. They have tests that they have to, you know, give every day to their kids, or, for, you know, all these all these different assessments, and then they're supposed to put them into a spreadsheet, and then they have to talk to their coworkers on it. These prep periods are for those teachers to prepare for their teaching. Not, again, like we hear in so many different instances, all this busy work for the principal or for the superintendent. What we need to make sure is that these prep times are sacred. They are not to do the busy work of the principal or the district, but to prepare for the instruction of their students in the best way that they can. And so while we might not be able to move on extra prep time, I think that within our school system, we have to recognize that those are sacred times. Those are safe times for those teachers to make the phone calls, to make the emails. When a principal or a district says you have to make so many phone calls every week and you have to respond to all these emails, there just isn't enough time in the day for a teacher to prepare for their classwork, address the issues of the day in the school, use the restroom, grab a cup of coffee, have an uninterrupted lunch hour. And so I think there are ways that we can work around perhaps not extra prep time, but making sure that those prep times are actually not interfered with by any kind of administration. And so I just wanted to put that out there.
Senator Duckworth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Senator Kunesh, I think that is a great sentiment, and that those prep times should be protected as much as possible. I think we have heard from that, and sometimes, and here's the deal, it's the middle of the day, and an administrator comes to a teacher and says, we're in a pinch, and we know you have prep time, but could you cover for so-and-so? And a great quality teacher, almost always, if they can, is going to say, absolutely, of course, and then they're going to take work home with them that night. So I think you're 100% correct in that finding ways to respect and preserve that prep time is crucial. But I'll also say sometimes that busy work that the administrator or the principal or the district is asking for has to relate with sometimes what we mandate from the state. And we're asking for certain things or requiring our districts to do certain things that begin to fill up the plate of the district or teachers. And so striking that balance, I think, is crucial as we're considering changes or mandates that districts are going to have to implement, ultimately find their ways to teachers and classrooms. So I 110% agree with you. And the more that we can all do collectively as districts, administrators, and as a legislature to help relieve some of that pressure that chips into their prep time on occasion, I think would be greatly appreciated by those teachers. So thank you.
Senator Cwodzinski.
Yeah, thank you, everybody, and thank you for the two teachers and the three administrators that testified. And I think all of the senators that testified just now and the five testifiers in education all agree that the prep hour is precious. It's part of the day that the teacher plans for, and things happen, and I get that, but when things happen, as the one teacher testified from Moorhead, when she said, I want to be the best teacher I can be, and it's hard to be the best teacher you can be when you're giving up your prep hour to help a colleague. And I don't know what you guys want to do and about this, but the fact is morale of our teachers is plummeted. It's at record lows that I've never seen in my lifetime, and we've got to do something. And maybe it's not going to be this thing, but at least let's continue the conversation. Our teachers are scrambling for lifelines, and if a lifeline that we can provide them is that the prep hour is sacrosanct and will not be touched, maybe that's something we can do. We keep hearing a third of our teachers are leaving the first 5 years, and we're hearing, if we've learned one thing this session, it's that there's a lot of reasons why. And but let's try to get a handle on this and try to help our teachers, because like I said, a third of them are leaving in the first 5 years, and that's no way to build a career path for an educator. So with that said, we are sending this to...
And finance is the motion. Would you like to make a motion to refer or to recommend Senate File 680? I stand corrected. We
Thank
will
you.
lay this bill over for further consideration.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members. Okay, we've got 30 minutes. We're going to do this bill. Everything worked out fine. Senator, we're ready for you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members.
Senator Pa, begin, and testifiers, if the person before you gave what your remarks are, and if you could limit them to a minute and a half, that'd be so helpful to everybody here today and under the circumstances. And thank you, Senator Powell, for helping out one of our colleagues and when she's having not a perfect day. So thank you for stepping up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members, thank you for the opportunity to present to you today regarding my bill SF 1273, the READ Act. We do have an author's amendment A1 to present.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to accept A1 amendment.
All those in favor of the author's amendment, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. The READ Act is an effort to take what we know about research, human development, and cognitive science on how people learn to read and apply it to meaningful public policy. The goal is to support our districts and improve literacy rates in the state of Minnesota to help every child to have the opportunity to read well. Before you are slides that I have provided titled the READ Act. That details a legislative history over the past 22 years. Many thanks to the House Legislative Library for their work in compiling this information for members so that you have that in context. You should also have a handout with MCA reading scores that show our literacy rates, detailing that only about 50% of Minnesota students are reading at grade level. We absolutely can and must do better. I want to be clear that most people in this field will tell you that MCAs are not a great measure of how well a child reads. But that is how we report and look at them now in our state. The READ Act seeks to find a better path. Our goal is to continue to work on the language so that the final bill will have broad support and can help all of our districts. I do have some testifiers today, and I'm open for questions or comments after.
Thank you, Senator. So if we could get the testifiers going, like, just come on up. We have a list. 3 at a time or 2 at a time would be wonderful. And again, and I know you've worked really hard on your remarks, but if you could make them less than 2 minutes each. And listen for the sound of the ringing bell that will be on the speakers. Thank you. Just begin testifying. Identify yourself for the record. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Maria Roberts, and I'm the principal at Wilshire Park Elementary School in the St. Anthony New Brighton School District. It's an honor to testify before you today in support of the READ Act. Mr. Chair and members of the committee, I've been working in Minnesota public schools for over 20 years, and as our data repeatedly shows, our educational system has not met the literacy needs of an alarming number of students. We must stop accepting these outcomes. I started my career as a special education teacher. In college, I was taught how to teach art and music, not how to teach reading. Today, when I ask teachers how they learned to teach reading, the majority of them say they also were not adequately prepared. Schools have historically given teachers the what to teach. We give them books and manuals to implement, but we haven't always honored their professionalism by providing them opportunities to learn the how and why to teach evidence-based reading instruction. We can do better by providing both the time and money it takes to help teachers learn evidence-based practices, unlearn the practices and beliefs that are not serving our students, and provide coaching for effective instruction and assessment. We stop treating teachers simply as implementers and instead treat them as they are, educators. Unfortunately, evidence-based reading instruction is often only delivered in special education and intervention classrooms. These classrooms are disproportionately filled with our students of color. By implementing evidence-based reading practices into Tier 1 general education instruction, we may actually help reduce this disproportionality. Here's what's most exciting for me to share with you today. Since we've begun to provide professional development and purchased a curriculum aligned with the science of reading, we see classrooms filled with joy. Kids are learning to read and they are proud. Pride breeds joy. Teachers are not only continuing to connect learning to a student's world, they are teaching them the skills to effectively navigate their world. It is our moral obligation to support students toward understanding their individual purpose and to become independent learners. In order to do that, they must be able to read. Mr. Chair and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify today.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, thank you for allowing me to be here today. My name is Kate Scapel. I'm an elementary curriculum coordinator for School District 197. Over the last 20 years, I've taught in multiple levels from preschool through grade 3. I spent the last 10 years of my career developing curriculum in all content areas, including reading. When I was working in my undergraduate degree, I was taught about teaching phonics, reading comprehension, and writing. But when I got to my dream job of teaching first grade, I was teaching a small group guided reading lesson, and the reading specialist at my school was there to support me. As I was working with a child to decode or sound out a word, she stopped me in the middle of the lesson and told me, "We don't sound out words. We use what we call cueing strategies." And only one of those strategies involved having children recognize a sound and then read the word. I was confused, but I did what I was told and was trained to do. This was a model that was widespread across school districts across the country. It was all about the joy of reading. We were teaching letters, sounds, and word chunks, but not really letting kids use and apply them when they were actually reading. In 2018, after attending the MTSS conference with Dr. Kim Gibbons from the University of Minnesota, my district went to a model of screening students 3 times a year using FastBridge. When we did this screening, we were able to unveil some things that we needed and some work we needed to do around encoding and decoding words. We were able to move to a teaching resources that teach children structured literacy. This implementation is still developing as it began in the height of the pandemic, but we are headed in the right direction. Based on the experiences of my school district, I feel the greatest need is training and materials that support a thorough reading program that includes the systematic of instruction of phonics and phonemic awareness, in addition to fluency, reading comprehension, word study, and course writing. This bill would provide districts access to funds that will allow them to provide this for their students. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee. My name is Kulia Pringle, and I'm the Minnesota State Director for the National Parents Union. I'm here in support of Senate File 1273, the READ Act. At the National Parents Union, we provide one-on-one support to Minnesota families as they navigate the pre-K through 12th grade education system. I also co-founded a homework help program at Jimmy Lee JK Movement Recreation Center. I see firsthand as I stand alongside families the frustration, depression, and the overwhelmingly feeling of disappointment as families realize their children are not where they need to be when it comes to reading. The fact is just 30% of eighth grade students in Minnesota performed at or above proficient on the NEAT. This means 7 out of 10 of our 8th grade students who have little over 4 years left of public education career are not ready or on grade level. We owe them more. We owe them by adopting explicit strategies to ensure that we are using strong research-based curriculum. We owe them high-quality ongoing professional development for our teachers, and we owe them the ability to continuously monitor and improve their progress. I believe the READ Act accomplishes these things for our kids. I coined the phrase called read or die, or reading to live. I'm going to read a poem from one of my former students which conveys the phrase. My hand was raised, you looked at me and turned the other way. Little did I know I wasn't having a good day. So I screamed, I threw my paper and my pencil on the ground. I got kicked out from then on. School to school, I moved around. Now I'm 17, the school thing isn't really for me. The streets are more appealing. Till we got caught in court. The cop said that he felt threatened. I'm on t-shirts with clouds and gate that look like heaven. The look on everyone's face, I hate to see them all so down. I watched my mom scream as they put me in the ground. If only I'd known my life, I would plead to think that all this happened because I couldn't read. Thank you.
I'm sorry, my name is Barb Dufferin, and I think it's my turn, but I'm not sure.
Go ahead.
Okay,
Sorry,
thank you.
my mic was off.
Chair
I apologize.
Cwodzinski and members of the committee, my name is Barb Dufferin, Superintendent of Matamidi Public Schools. Thank you for your commitment to improving literacy outcomes for all of our students in Minnesota. In Matamidi, we share that commitment. I'm here to support the READ Act and want to emphasize to you that implementing the science of reading is a big lift, not simply a training conducted by one person. Over the past few years at Matamidi, we have put considerable time and resources toward letters training. And at the end of this year, after 80 hours of work for each participant, we have trained all of our K-2 classroom teachers and many of our district special education and reading intervention teachers. Additionally, we have a leadership team to oversee the implementation of the principles of a scientifically based literacy program, as well as the de-implementation of practices and resources that are not evidence-based. The team will provide leadership in auditing curriculum resources, determine literacy background priorities for future hires, identify additional training needs, monitor rollouts of new resources, and analyze data to identify future needs. As you move forward, I ask that you resist any overly prescriptive language that names specific positions and roles which may not align with how we choose to implement changes in our literacy program. Again, thank you for supporting evidence-based literacy programs. The requirements that are outlined currently are one way to move a system change forward. I encourage you to refine the language to include more flexibility in the way a district can meet the intent of such a critical change. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I'm Dr. Lucy Payne, a Matamidi School Board member and faculty member in teacher preparation at the University of St. Thomas. The teaching of reading and the need to improve reading outcomes for all students is a complex issue. There isn't a one-size-fits-all answer or one thing that needs to be addressed. The system needs improvement. The system must change. The READ Act approaches literacy improvement from a systems perspective. This bill involves many of the key stakeholders. The language of this bill needs to continue to evolve and should continue to hold high standards for all students while allowing flexibility for districts to be responsive to their unique context. I appreciate the ideas and concepts in this bill. Experience tells us that we need what is included in the bill and more. Professional development of teachers, building leadership, and paraprofessionals needs to happen over time. A one-time or short experience isn't going to make the changes we need. Teachers need ongoing coaching and support. These ideas need long-term funding for implementation that will lead to a change in outcome for students. The way the bill is currently written, there isn't support for districts and teachers with adequate funding and ongoing coaching for the system to change. I fully agree with the urgency of changing practices. As a district that has begun this process, we want to ensure that urgency does not lead to poor implementation for the sake of moving quickly. In order to see the change we desire in outcomes, we need to acknowledge that learning to read and comprehend text is a complex process that takes time. In closing, I would like to, again, state my support for the ideas and outcomes in this bill and its systems approach to the urgent need to support Minnesota students in literacy. I hope the bill language continues to be refined to address the different school districts and context and long-term nature of the solution. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Senator, thank you, members of committee. My name is Dr. Killian, and it is my pleasure to speak today on behalf of the 86,000 members of Education Minnesota. We're here today to speak in favor of Senate File 1273, also known as the READ Act. Before we give you just two of our concerns that we just wanted to flag, we did want to say that we wanted to remind everyone we are here today because of a structural problem. We are here today because of a structural problem you all have a very unique opportunity to fix. The best curriculum, the best screeners, and the best interventions will mean nothing if we do not fully fund our schools and fully staff our schools and repair the teaching profession. No one can implement the great stuff that's in the READ Act if we don't have anybody in the building doing the work. There are a lot of great things in this bill, but one thing that we wanted to flag is the personalized learning plan language that is still ongoing and is still being talked about as this bill moves through its various forms. But we want to make sure and caution members of the committee, every time you place more paperwork on teachers, you decrease their time to spend with students and you decrease their ability to focus on their lesson plans and crafting the interventions that they plan to do in real time with students. There's no question that scholars working within the science of reading have revolutionized reading instruction. We are very thankful, though, that the bill's language now reads science of reading or evidence-based, but because we know there are certain populations of protected students that need more than just a science of reading approach. So with that, we stand in favor, and we've been very happy to work with the coalition in both the House and the Senate that's working on this bill.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Wendy Stitchin, the Associate Director of Literacy at the Center for Applied Research and Educational Improvement at the University of Minnesota, which houses the Minnesota Center for Reading Research. I'm here today to talk about literacy work that we've been doing in partnership with MDE. This work is directly related to the READ Act bill. After 4 years into this project, we are now co-leading the work across several districts and schools within 2 regions in Minnesota. We started with training, and now we're sustaining changes in teachers' instructional practices and in managing systems change. So let's talk about what does this look like in practice. In year 1, we focused on training teachers. Mid-year, we realized our instructional materials would not enable the teachers to apply their learning to daily phonics instruction. We built new instructional materials that supported teachers in instructing students as their training intended. We spent 3 years improving those instructional materials that now follow the training and mirror what is measured and coached. This year, districts are refining their instructional routines around vocabulary, comprehension, and writing. We will be continuing the process of monitoring instruction and the use of instructional materials to ensure that improvements to resources follow both training and research. Most recently, classroom observations confirm that staff need ongoing support to make, adapt, and sustain changes in practice. Highly effective instructional coaches increase teachers' confidence when they provide feedback, model routines, and support new instructional habits. Instruction is improving. Teachers are excited to see growth in students' confidence in mastery of foundational reading skills. When changes in instruction are system-wide, we will see increase in sustained literacy outcomes. Teachers need consistent and ongoing training. Instructional resources align to the evidence-based practices, coaching to transfer and integrate those practices, and administrators to make policies that enable sustained and continuous support. We must provide implementation support at all levels: classroom, grade, building, region, and state. Carrie and MDE have already been doing this work collaboratively, but we have limited capacity without additional resources. We look forward to expanding our partnership with your support. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in support of the READ Act bill.
Next testifier's online as well. Nafisa.
Thank you. I couldn't find the list. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee and guests. My name is Melissa Muhammad, and I'm a high school English teacher taking a time out. I'm on a mental health break because after 8 years of teaching and going on strike, I took all that I could take. I now support teachers who are fighting for just and equitable teaching and learning experiences as Deputy Director of Educators for Excellence Minnesota. I am in strong support of Senate File 1273. As an experienced English language arts teacher, I know how hopeless many secondary content teachers feel when students arrive to their classroom not knowing how to read or lacking the confidence needed to attack the text, resulting in losing in motivation to learn and losing the need to stay in school. There's a saying in secondary literacy education that by the time the youth reach middle and high school, they should be reading to learn, not learning to read. Thus, secondary content teachers aren't taught to be reading teachers. I ask, what is a high school student to do when they do not know how to read? Where do they go when none of their teachers know how to teach them something they should have gotten in elementary school? According to the Minnesota Report Card through MDE in 2022, 26% of Black fourth graders were proficient in reading achievement alone. This is the result of districts doing what they want to do. MDE Communication Director Kevin Burns recently stated that most recent data continue trends that we've seen beginning in 2017 prior to COVID. This is a result of districts doing what they want to do. Ensuring that every Minnesota student can read well at every grade level is critical to closing the opportunity gaps and ending internalized oppression. As a legislative session process unfolds, we ask that the needs of BIPOC students, English language learners, and biliterate students are met during this transition. All students benefit from access to literature that is representative of their culture and celebratory of their humanity. Thank you.
Next testifiers online as well, Charlie.
Hello, my name is Charlie Tyree. I'm an organizer at Educators for Excellence Minnesota and a community organizer in Minneapolis Ward 10. I work with teachers every day, hearing their perspectives on what Minnesota students are facing in our current school climate, and I have some teacher statements to read in support of Bill SF 1273. From former Minneapolis teacher Shannon Mitchell, literacy is by far the most important skill we must give kids, and we are failing. There is no excuse for this, and it's shameful. There are educators who successfully teach kids to read, even those with free and reduced lunch status. It can be done. As a former teacher, I saw the wide variety in training teachers had to address the literacy needs of their students. All educators, but especially those in high poverty schools, should have access to training and support at improving literacy. Next, from St. Paul teacher Katie Sandsmark, this is a very important issue because I work with primarily students of color and EL students. Literacy is severely lacking for many students, and rather than this issue being tackled and solved, it is often ignored. I hear teachers say things like, oh, that student is not a strong reader. They really struggle in this class because they can't access the materials. Because teachers don't have the capacity to teach reading or do reading interventions, in addition to teaching their content areas, these struggling readers get left behind. This needs to change. Every student deserves to be confident in their reading ability, and we can do so much more to support our students. These two teachers are among many of our members that support the READ Act. Data shows that an alarming amount of Minnesota students are not meeting literacy standards today. So today, I'm urging you to pass the READ Act, which allows teachers to learn evidence-based strategies to set up our students for academic success now and in the future. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Chair and committee members, thank you for allowing me to speak today. My name is Amelia Kelscher, and I am a special education teacher who works with children with learning disabilities, emotional and behavioral disorders, autism spectrum disorder, and developmental cognitive disabilities. I'm here today to show my full support of the READ Act. As a special education teacher, I can say that the science of reading has changed the lives of the students that I teach. I have watched my students' reading abilities, confidence, and attitudes towards school grow in astounding ways. I have seen how students are unlocking the code as they begin to learn reading skills in a systematic way that they can then generalize into the books they are reading in their classrooms. Students are excited about reading once they are equipped with the tools and knowledge they need to master basic skills. I have seen significant growth in students whose achievement scores were the lowest. After 2 years of implementing a reading curriculum based on the science of reading, many of my students are able to access grade level material they were not previously able to. I have even been able to dismiss students from special education services because of the growth that has been made, and I believe that this is because of the science of reading. After 2 years, not only did one of my students meet expectations on their reading MCA, but they scored at the top of their entire grade. The science of reading is life-changing for so many children who need explicit, systematic, and sequential instruction in order to learn to read. It dismays me to hear that people still hold the belief that students with disabilities will never be able to read at grade level and that we should not expect them to. This belief is false. Not only is this untrue, but it is damaging to the children we work with. We should all hold high expectations for every child. We know and understand that it is possible for us to close reading gaps, and that should be our ultimate goal for every student. Lowering our expectations for children causes children to lower expectations of themselves. Practices based on the science of reading are necessary for some and beneficial for all. Thank you.
Thank you. This guy. Malachi Johnson.
My name is Malachi Johnson. I've been teaching for 20 years. I've taught third grade. I've taught reading and math support. I'm currently live in my fifth grade classroom. What we've been doing isn't working, and I see the negative effects daily. What is literacy? Literacy is access. It's access to a better life and the hope of a better future. Literacy is opportunity. It's the opportunity to reach your full potential and become who you want to be. But most important, literacy is civil rights. I'm a huge proponent of using culturally relevant teaching strategies and materials, and I believe that good teaching using the science of reading includes having kids reading culturally relevant texts and using culturally relevant instructional practices when delivering instruction. Science of reading does not cancel a teacher's ability to teach using culturally relevant strategies. Science of reading does not stop a teacher from doing the magic that we do on a daily basis. Our students deserve better than what we've been giving them, and we have the opportunity here to provide students with the tools and access to a better life. Educators need the support and help to start repairing the broken system that we have. The READ Act can be that support. Support for teachers to give students access to high quality reading instruction. With the READ Act, teachers will have the training and tools to support our students and begin to close the large literacy discrepancies we have in Minnesota and provide our students with the opportunities to access the amazing advantages that come from being able to read. I love this quote by Frederick Douglass. It says, "Once you learn to read, you will be forever free." Our students deserve the best, and our teachers deserve the tools to create access and opportunities for the students in Minnesota. I ask you to listen to educators, people in the game, doing the work every day. We look into the kids' eyes and see the amazing things that these kids are capable of. We see the pride kids have when they can read, and I will tell you from experience, there aren't many things better than that. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Hutchinson's next, online.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Peter Hutchinson. At an earlier point in my career, I, like you, served the state of Minnesota as the Commissioner of Finance. Now you call it the Commissioner of Management and Budget. And a few years after that, I became the superintendent of the Minneapolis Public Schools. I'm here in support of SF 1273. If you took all the students in Minnesota that are reading below proficiency, lined them up and had them hold hands, it would stretch from here to Chicago. We have a crisis of unprecedented scale in our literacy in Minnesota, and we need to address it. The consequences are devastating, individually, for families, for communities, the over-identification for special education, the over-participation in suspension and other disciplinary matters, the fact that 70 to 90% of the people that are incarcerated today can't read tells you the consequences of this crisis. I can speak to it personally because when I was in second grade, I was told I couldn't read, effectively telling me I was dumb. When a child hears that, they carry that with them. I carried it with me for years. And the fact is that virtually every single human being can learn to read. The fact that half of our kids are not is not a consequence of something the kids did. It's because they were not given the opportunity. The READ Act addresses that, and I think it can get us where we want to go. But it will not and does not and should not ever blame our teachers for what has happened. Our teachers have been immersed in a system of education that does not work. They didn't choose it. They were immersed in it. The READ Act can help fix that problem if it does 7 things, and I think the READ Act does. First, it makes using evidence-based reading a matter of policy. Secondly, it assures that all new teachers will have a license that means they can use these skills. They have them and can use them effectively. And the programs that prepare them would be required to assure that that's the case. It would support existing teachers in the unlearning and relearning that's going to be necessary and provides them with the coaches that they're going to need to get it done. It needs to encourage every school, because it affects every school, to adopt a curriculum that embraces these same policies. And it needs to provide the resources that schools can acquire the necessary curriculum materials to get the job done. And finally, it ought to provide for the kind of high dosage interventions that are necessary right now for children from K through 12, and in fact, many of our graduates, to allow them to have an opportunity to close those gaps that, if we don't address today, will become permanent. Finally, we can afford to do this.
Thank you, Mr. Hutchinson.
You've heard already. And my final thing is, don't go small. Take this on, make it, address it in a way that Frederick Douglass would be proud. Thank you.
Okay, last 2 testifiers, Mr. Uni.
Mr. Chair, while he's coming, this is the answer. Thanks.
Mr. Chair, committee members, my name is Adosh Uni. I'm the Director of Government Relations for the Minnesota Department of Education. I'll keep my comments brief. Thank you to the author for sharing the sense of urgency for addressing our literacy achievement rates in our state. We appreciate the opportunity to connect with the author and advocates to work together to produce bills that both prioritize strategies to best serve our children, families, and communities, especially our most underserved children, and address the resource and professional learning needs of our educators in order to ensure our children learn to read at grade level at every grade. We are working collaboratively toward common goals and aligned priorities so that every child is reading at or above grade level every year, beginning in kindergarten, including multilingual learners and students receiving special education services, by ensuring educators have the supports needed to provide comprehensive evidence-based reading instruction. Our overall goal is that school leaders and educators must provide evidence-based reading instruction through a multi-tiered system of support by 2027. This morning, MDE had the opportunity to walk through the governor's education budget bill, which contains the bold literacy proposal, which we're extremely excited about. We see many similarities in the READ Act and the governor's language, as well as a few differences. And we look forward to continuing to work with the author for areas of alignment and shared investment. And we truly appreciate our efforts to address this important need. It will take each and every one of us to come together to do what it takes to change this trajectory and ensure we support our educators in making sure that their efforts make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Last testifier. Okay, members.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Duckworth.
Thank you. I don't know if there is somebody here that an expert that could answer this question. I'm wondering what the difference is between the science of reading and what evidence-based reading is. And I know that might sound like a dumb question, but.
Hi, I'm Wendy Stitchen, the Associate Director of Literacy at Cary. I think I can help answer that question, and it is not a dumb question. These terms can get very confusing, so let me try to help explain that. So the science of reading is the body of work referred to as science of reading. It's really emerging consensus from related disciplines based on literacy of thousands of studies supported by hundreds of millions of research dollars across the world in many languages. So it's really a body of research. So that's the science of reading. And then your next question was, how is that different from evidence-based literacy practices? Is that correct?
Correct. That is correct.
Yeah. Okay, so evidence-based literacy practices are actually taking the research, the science of reading, right? And then putting those in applicable practices that are used within the classroom.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes.
Thank you. Would some of the methods of teaching literacy in the past also be included under what is considered evidence-based literacy?
Practices such as like 3 cueing system, or could you be a little bit more specific? Which practices?
I will be more specific if I may, Mr. Chair. 3 cueing and specifically the method of literacy training and teaching that the 3 cueing system was a part of.
Yeah, absolutely not. 3 cueing system would not be part of evidence-based practice, evidence-based literacy practices.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, you may.
Thank you.
Senator, thank you.
Yeah, and thank you to the testifier for her explanation there. Here's the deal. I want to get on board with the big literacy push in our state. We have talked about it at length. We agree on it. I've talked to the author of this bill about it, and the original bill talked about the science of reading at length. I could find it in there a lot. It talked about phonics, fluency, and really doubled down on the science of reading. When I look at this new bill with the amendment, I see the science of reading referenced once, and it has to do with what teachers are taught as they're getting their license, which is good. But then there are other areas in the bill which we have stricken scientifically based reading and replaced it with evidence-based literacy. And there is a portion of the bill that outlines and says that the 3 cueing method system would be a part of what is defined as structured literacy. And so I'm getting a little bit confused and frustrated as to what appeared to be a phenomenal bill that was moving in the right direction, only to now see a version that I think people who testified are maybe confused about, or maybe it's just me, because everybody was here talking about the science of reading and how it's great. And somebody even said that the bill allowed for evidence-based reading or the science of reading, but I don't see an either or in here. What I see on page 2, line 2.29 is scientifically based reading stricken and replaced with evidence-based literacy. And so just for the good of the discussion that we're going to have about literacy as we move forward is I want to be really clear that we are not shying away from doubling down on the science of reading, and I want us to be crystal clear that we are leaving zero room in our state statute for schools to use the previous methods that have been taught over the years that have now been shown to not work as well as we thought they have. So if we're going to do this and do it right, we've got to be crystal clear about doubling down on what does work, and that is the science of reading and phonics. And we also can't leave any wiggle room at all to still perpetuate or have the methods that have failed students to still be utilized in our classroom. So, Mr. Chair, this isn't directed at the bill or its author or co-author. It's more directed at the general discussion that we're having as a state and what method we're going to move forward with to help our little kids. Thank you.
Senator.
Mr. Chair, Senator Duckworth, thank you for your question and your concern, and we share that concern. It was probably my fault for saying science of reading or evidence-based in this bill, in the House bill, and there's like 6 different versions of this bill, as you know, that are floating around, and so I was probably looking at the wrong one before the testimony in the Senate, and I apologize. The things that we would point out to you that are in the bill that are putting up the exact guardrails that you are hoping exist. First is the requirement that the Department of Education has to work with Carrie, who is very rooted in making sure that we root out these bad practices. Also, the way evidence-based is defined in the bill matches with science of reading. And this is also an attempt to start moving in the direction of bold literacy as well, because eventually READ Act and bold literacy will have to combine. The reason that it was expanded from science of reading to science of reading or evidence-based or just evidence-based or structured literacy is because any teacher of reading will tell you that while science of reading does great for most everyone, there's still going to be some kids that need additional evidence-based strategies, and we're talking about students with traumatic brain injuries, students with Down syndrome, and these populations may not benefit solely from phonics, and so we want to make sure that those strategies are not outlawed by just writing into statute, you have to do this one thing. if that, it's to give more flexibility in those cases.
Mr. Chair, I find that to be helpful. But again, and maybe there are different versions of the bill floating around. This version doesn't appear to be the either-or version. And so I plan to learn more. I'm being open-minded about this, but I'm just getting the concern out there on the front end so that we can hopefully address it or make improvements if it's necessary. Because if this doesn't double down on science of reading and is still going to allow for some of those other methods to be used en masse, maybe not in very specific instances for specific kids, then we will not have addressed the issue in its entirety. Thank you.
Members, anybody else? Senator, final thoughts. And again, we can't thank you enough for stepping up today for one of our colleagues. It is above and beyond the call of duty, so thank you on behalf of all of us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. You know, as a mom of 5, one's still a baby, but my 4 older ones have 3 still in school. One's, thank goodness, an adult, have a family of his own, but all my children have struggled with reading in school. As a mom, it was really hard to see them struggle and have challenges. And oftentimes, when I try to teach them, they're like, that's not how my teacher taught me. You know, everybody has their own methods. As a mom, I'm not a teacher, but it was really hard to see my children struggle with reading in school and not know how to help them oftentimes. I think we can do so much better to help our children to succeed in life and to read, and I'm hoping that this bill will do just that. I appreciate all your time, and I welcome you to be part of improving this bill and open to discussions outside of committee. Thank you.
So this bill will be going to Education Finance. And all those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you for indulging, going over a little bit. Everybody, members of the team and audience members, thanks for coming. We adjourn.